Today we're talking about rewriting equations. So in this upcoming chapter, this is a skill that we're going to need to be good at. Chapter 4 is talking about equations and linear equations and how do we graph things and how do we rewrite in certain forms of equations. So this new skill that we're going to talk about is when we have an equation with two or more variables in it. These are called literal equations. To rewrite a literal equation, what we're going to basically do is solve one of the variables in terms of the other ones. And basically what that means is we're going to get one of the variables all by themselves. We won't be able to get like y equals 3 or x equals 15 or z equals 12 because we have more than one variable in it. But we still can use our same SAD-MEG steps to work backwards to get the isolation of that one variable that we're looking for. So let's try some examples and hopefully it will kind of start to make a little bit of sense. So we are asked to solve the equation 2y plus 5x equals 6 for y. So what does that really mean? So we want to first look at that. We want to solve it for y. So that means a couple of things here. We want to just draw this kind of big area. So what that means is we want to isolate y. That's what that is telling us. Isolate the y, which means we want to solve for y. Which means y by itself. So we want our equation to eventually look like y equals, and then everything else is going to go to the other side. We also will see this phrase. We're solving for y in terms of x. So this is the same thing. So all these things are basically saying what this question is asking for. Solve the equation for y. Basically means isolate y, solve for y, get it to be y equals, and the other way of saying this is y in terms of x. So how do we do that? So basically we're going to use our SAD-MEG, just like we did in the last chapter when we were solving for a one variable. Obviously there are two variables, so it does look different. So remember when we had variables on both sides, we had to move the entire term with the x's at once. So we're going to use that here too. So my very first step, we're solving for y. So remember we talked about circling. We talked about drawing that line through our equal sign. So we first have to look at what do we need to move? Well, we have a multiplication of 2 times y. We also have the plus 5x. So what we're going to first do in SAD-MEG, we're going to move the 5x. So again, to move plus 5x, we subtract 5x. If we do it to one side, we need to do it to the other side. Then we can draw our line. So that's going to eliminate the 5x, leaving me with the 2y. Now notice on the other side though, can I take 6 and subtract 5x's? They are not like terms, so I can't push them together. So they're going to stay separate. Now the other thing that I would like to do, and this will be for a future down the road lesson, I would like to have my x's first on the right hand side. So remember, minus 5x, I can keep that as minus 5x. And then this 6 up top, remember, is a positive 6. So I would write that as a positive 6. So 6 minus 5x would be the same as negative 5x plus 6. Now, it wouldn't be wrong if you wrote 6 minus 5x, but just trust me, when we get a little bit further into this chapter, we're going to want the x's first. So then we come back to the next step. So now we're still trying to get y by itself. So we talked about dividing 2. That'll get y all by itself. So on the other side, because there's a plus, or if it was a minus sign with that 6, I need to make sure that both things get divided by 2. It can't just be one of the things or the other thing. They both have to be divided by 2. So now when I go and I take 2y divided by 2, those cancel and I get y. On the other side, negative 5x divided by 2, and notice here I'm leaving this as a fraction. It is negative 5 over 2x, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3. And this is as far as I can go. I can't combine these two things here. They're not like terms. So my final answer is y equals negative 5 over 2. Make sure your x is nice and big and it doesn't look like it should belong to the 2 or the 5. It's just times x. And then I add 3. That is the equation. This is the same equation, just rewritten as solving for y. Now I know this one says that it's going to be try on your own, but we're going to do another one or two together, and then we'll have you try a couple on your own. So for this next one, we're solving for y. So notice the solve for y. That means this needs to be by itself. I'm going to draw my little line. So this time I need to move the 10x over first. So I'm subtracting 10x. Don't add, subtract 10x. Now again, the 20 and the 10x's aren't like terms, so I can't combine them. So I'm going to put the y with the minus. Don't forget there was a minus y, so that has to come down when those x's cancel. And on the other side, I would like my x first, and then followed by the constant or the number. Now I still haven't solved for y yet because I have to get it to be negative y becomes a positive y. But I do that by dividing by a negative 1. And again, on the other side, because there's plus or minus, I have to make sure I divide everything by a negative 1. So this over on the left gets me to the y that we want. Then negative 10x divided by negative 1 is positive 10x, and a positive 20 divided by negative 1 is a negative 20. And that's it. There's nothing else I can do there. That is solved for y. Don't try to make the 10x and the 20 go together. So on the next one, again, try to get y by itself. Draw our little y. My first move is to bring over the x. So I subtract the x. That's going to cancel x minus x on the left. And again, I bring everything down, so minus 10y equals 90 minus x, or if we put the x first, it would be negative x plus 90. Now here, to divide by negative 10 on the left, I have to make sure I divide each on the right by a negative 10. That will cancel that, leaving me y. And here, I have a negative divided by a negative, so that's now positive. And then x over 10, and then 90 divided by a negative 10 is minus 9. Now, just so you know, that's the best way to write that answer. But just so we understand what that means, really what that is 1/10 times x minus 9. Remember, it was 1x divided by 10, so it's really 1/10 x. I don't want you to get confused. This is the most efficient way of seeing this, but really there's a 1 here, so I could still write it as 1/10 times x. Either of them is acceptable for sure. Basically, though, the first one is the best answer, but the second answer is also the same. So based on what we just did in those first two examples, please try these two. I'm going to have you pause the video and try them. I will then show and explain how each one of them is done out from there. So hopefully you have this answer. So first, I circled the y and I drew my big line through the equation sign. I subtracted 5x from both sides here. That left me with 7y on the left. And over here, remember I want the x's first, so I have negative 5x plus 49. So then to get the y completely by itself, I divide by 7 to cancel the 7's there. And then over here, notice I divide by 7 to get negative 5/7 x. I divide by 7 to get 7. I can't do anything further on the right-hand side, so I can just put a little box around this to get to my final answer. I also don't want to make it any kind of a decimal, negative 5/7 x. Try the next one, pause the video, and then I'll show you the answer. So hopefully you have this one done and you did it well. Basically what we did here was we took x and subtracted it first from both sides to eliminate the x on the left, leaving me with 9y. Over here, those are not like terms, so I'm just going to bring down the x term first, so minus x minus 18. Then to break the 9 from the y, which says multiply, we divide by 9. Then we have to make sure we divide both terms on the right-hand side by 9 also. That's going to leave me with y equals negative x over 9 minus 2, or that's the same thing as saying y equals negative 1/9 x minus 2. Again, like we said, the first one is the better answer, but the second one is saying the same thing, and we'd be okay with that as well. So this is definitely a skill that we're going to want to be good at. We want to make sure we understand how to rewrite some of these equations, and we're going to start seeing lots of equations soon where we're looking at trying to read things about the equations, making some graphs, etc. So we really want to make sure we understand how to rewrite some of these formulas as well. If you have any kind of questions, please feel free to let me know next time I see you or whenever we have a chance to talk.